Okay, so first I want to remind you guys of last week. We said one of the biggest issues in marriage is what? Who remembers?
Not taking responsibility.
Right. Oh!
She gets her
Well,
skills from.
yes.
I wasn't listening last week.
What?
It definitely isn't me. I mean,
Ah,
it's definitely not me.
okay, and how people don't take responsibility, they transfer
Blame.
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 You don't expect me to catch
You almost did.
that.
Okay.
Oh, she's on. Here, what's she doing?
One sign of blame transfer. Who can tell me one sign? Don't look at your nose.
That's not fair.
That's cheating. Defensiveness. Did you get it?
Hopelessness.
Hopelessness is another one.
Criticism.
And criticism. It's critically focusing. And that doesn't mean that you can't talk to your spouse about issues. It means you can't take one or two things and focus on them and make them bigger and bigger until it's all you see. And what is the deal with the hopelessness? When you focus on hopelessness, it's you've transferred the blame to the other person, and so there's no point in even trying because it's their fault, and if it's their fault and they don't want to change, what's the point, right? Nothing's going to change. So you have to take responsibility for your own sin. And if you do, if you take responsibility, then the sin goes out of the marriage. You can restore intimacy to your marriage, right? So the beginning of a good marriage is two people who marry, both take responsibility for their own behavior, and they don't point their fingers at each other. And who can, without looking at their notes, tell me the sentence that I told you need to remember? My spouse is not
Not the devil.
Not
Not the devil.
Not the devil.
and not
Not my enemy.
my enemy. They are
My
My
friend.
friend.
my friend. Wow. Somebody was listening. Okay, the other thing that I wanted to finish last week and I didn't was 1 John 4:18. Because when I'm teaching this, one thing that occurs to me is this verse. It says, "There is no fear in love, but perfect love casts out fear." The reason that so many of us don't want to take responsibility isn't just how we were raised, it isn't just that we're not mature, but it's also fear. We're afraid if we don't stand up for ourselves, if we don't take our rights, that nobody's going to, and we're going to get run over, pushed down, trodden on, and so on. So there's part of it is the fact that we're pointing our fingers and we're shifting the blame, but part of it is fear. Inside us is this little child that's afraid if we don't stand up for ourselves, who is going to? So what does this verse say? Perfect love casts out fear. Who is perfect love? Jesus. If we draw close enough to Jesus, he casts out that fear. When we draw closer to him and we trust him, then he begins to give us the courage to let down that fear and let down the shifting the blame and all of that and start doing things the right way, and our marriage will prosper. Okay, so today I want to finish up from last week, 4 emotional facts of life to help you understand the importance of that issue of taking responsibility for your own behavior. Here's the first one. No external person or event in life controls my level of emotional health or happiness. I'll say it again. No external person or event in life controls my level of emotional health or happiness. My response to it does. So my response to life does not form me. My life does not form me. My response to what happens in life forms me. I'm not in control of what happens in life. I can't control that. But I can control how I respond to it. I'm not a victim. I have absolute control of what takes place in here, in my heart, in my mind. So let me just ask, is there ever a time that God allows something to happen to us, someone to mistreat us, and we react toward them in a bad way? With anger, the wrong response, bitterness. Do you think that God allows that? No. He doesn't. Shake your head like this.
He doesn't cause it, but I thought he doesn't stop it, right?
No, you're misunderstanding what I said. I said, does God ever allow us, when we're mistreated, to respond in a wrong way? No. Do we respond in a wrong way? Oh yeah, all the time, right? Somebody cuts in front of us and that finger just flies up for no reason whatsoever, or we say a bad word, or whatever it is that you do. Your spouse says something and you give them the side eye, right? I mean, come on, let's be real. We do respond wrong. But here's the thing, that is not okay with God. When someone mistreats you, when they hurt you, when they wrong you, it is not okay with God for you to respond back with anger, bitterness, wrath, whatever it is you're doing. It is not okay. What does the Bible say? A soft answer turns away wrath. If someone's mistreating you and you speak softly, they have no grounds to stand on. They're going to turn around and walk away. They're not going to stand there and scream in your face. If they do, there's something wrong with them, but all you have to do is go to God and trust Him and say, God, you're my defender, I'm not. And they're going to walk away. But instead, our little man inside who doesn't trust God and who is afraid to let anyone walk over them, stands up and begins to scream back. God says no. In Matthew 18, Peter came up and asked Jesus, how many times should I forgive someone, my brother, who sins against me? This is a brother. 7. Should I forgive him 7 times? And what does Jesus say? 70 times 7. We are never allowed as believers not to forgive someone. Does that mean you have to be in a close relationship with them if it's a constant thing? No. You can set boundaries, but you have to forgive them. In Luke chapter 6, Jesus says, bless those that curse you. Do you know that the number one way to get emotional healing is to bless those that curse you? When someone hurts you, you begin to pray for them. You begin to say, Lord, bless that person. And at first you might be doing it like this, because I've done it. Lord, I know I'm supposed to bless them. I really don't like that person right now. Lord, just bless them. Go ahead and bless them. But you know, after you say it a few times, you start saying, all right, Lord, just bless them. Okay, Lord, I ask you to bless them. Just go ahead and bless them. Bless their socks off. Let them be so blessed they don't know what happened to them. And you know, the more you bless that person, you lose all your anger, you lose your bitterness, you lose your attitude. Why do you not want to have bitterness and unforgiveness in you? Hinders your prayer, but who does it hurt?
You.
Yourself.
You. It doesn't hurt them. I would say 96% of the time, they don't even know you're mad. They don't even know you're angry. And they don't care if they do know. But you're walking around with this big rock in your gut that you're dragging around behind you, right? Because you don't want to let it go. Let it go. Bless them. Do it through your teeth if you have to for a while, but do it. Doesn't matter if it was a parent or an ex-spouse. Some people have been divorced multiple times. Forgive them all. Let it go. It's not worth it. And you know, sometimes you find out down the road it wasn't all the other person. You might have had a little part to play in it, right? What I found is when Jesus said to bless those that curse you, it's not just a religious edict, but it's medicine for your soul. He's trying to help you get well. You can't hate a person and bless them at the same time. There's just no way. Jesus said, bless those that curse you, pray for those who spitefully use you. No event in life is forming you right now. It's your response to it that forms you. You go back in your life and you say, you know something, my parents did this. My parents did that. The reason I'm such an emotional wreck is because this happened to me when I was a child. And how old are you now? I would so like to say that to one of my sisters that has carried, not this one. Thank you. One that carries this stuff to this day. And I want to say, how old do you have to be to let this stuff go? At some point, you have to let things go. But some people don't know how to do that. Research has shown that how you were raised does not make you an emotional wreck. It's how you respond to that raising. You can have 3 or 4 children in the same home, and some of those children turn out just great. They succeed, they're happy, they have a good life, and others turn out negative and dysfunctional and are unhappy. It's their choice. You can't look back and say that your parents made you who you are. It's your response to your parents that makes you who you are. There might be a bent to be a certain way because of it, and you might have to fight a little harder to overcome it, but you are in control of those emotions at all times, and it's your choice, no one else's. Well, if I wasn't married to him or her, I could be happy. No. If you can't be happy right now, it's no one else's fault. You won't be happy with someone else. It's so funny, you watch people and they'll end up divorced and they marry someone else and they marry someone that's very similar to the person they left. And they're still unhappy. And then they turn around and they marry somebody else that's got the same issues as that person. Why? Because there's something in them that needs to be needed in that way. And they're unhealthy, so they're looking for someone else who fits that bill. And until they figure it out, they're just going to keep repeating that pattern. No, if you can't be happy right now, it's nobody else's fault but yours. So stop pointing the finger. That's what leads to a life of constant disappointment. You are in control of your own emotions. It doesn't matter what's happening around you, you are in control. So let me give you an example. I love this, of Abraham Lincoln. I think I've used this in other things, but it's so good. Abraham Lincoln had an incredibly difficult life, but what it produced in him was incredible. He had a difficult childhood, less than 1 year of formal schooling. He failed in business in 1831. He was defeated for legislature in 1822. He failed again in business in 1833. He was elected to the legislature in 1834. His fiancée died in 1835. He was defeated for speaker in 1838. Defeated for election in 1840 and 1842. Only one of his 3 sons lived past the age of 18. Can you imagine? He was defeated for Congress in 1843. He was elected to Congress in 1846. He was defeated for Congress in 1848. He was defeated for the Senate in 1855, defeated for Vice President in 1856. He was defeated for the Senate in 1858. He was elected President of the United States in 1860. Let me tell you something. How many of us could have withstood that type of rejection and kept going? You know, when the voters say, we don't want you. You're not the kind of man we want in office. Don't like you. Get out of here. And he kept saying to himself somehow, no, I'm a good man. I can help you. I can do a good job. I'm going to keep trying. You know, he wasn't the most handsome man in the world. He had a lot to overcome. One day he was speaking and this lady yelled out from the crowd and said, Abraham Lincoln, you're two-faced. And he said, lady, if I had 2 faces, do you think I'd wear this one? I mean, his fiancée dies, he failed in business, and only one of his sons lived past the age of 18. He fails to be elected over and over and over and over. And then he becomes one of the emotionally strongest men who ever served as President of the United States. And he led our country through one of the darkest times we ever had. And you say, oh, all of my problems and pain in life, all of my failures has just made me the wreck I am right now. No, your response to those things has made you the wreck that you are right now. Sometimes it makes people stronger, and sometimes it makes them devastated. But it's always our response. And if you're here this morning and you're just devastated, you can make the response, the right response today. And you can be emotionally healed. That's the good news. You don't have to sit here and wait on your mama or your daddy or your husband or your wife to change things. It's up to you. You decide to take control of your emotions and to grow up and become a mature adult and a mature Christian. And by the way, Abraham Lincoln's wife, I just told you how he was so strong. His wife went crazy. She was pronounced legally insane, Mary Todd Lincoln. She spent the rest of her life after his death in an insane asylum. Same marriage, same family, same home, same children, a different response to what happened. Every single one of us have a choice to make in our lives, whether or not we're going to take emotional responsibility for our own behavior and our own emotions. Let me give you one other example. It's a man named Viktor Frankl, a Jew during World War II who was put in prison camp. He survived when many around him did not survive. And he came out of the prison camp to become a motivational speaker. He helped millions of people. Here's what he said while he was in prison camp, and it was one of the keys of why he lived when others were dying. Listen to this. Now they're killing children and gassing them and gassing the infants in the oven and burning their bodies. It's going on all around him every day. He's seeing it. He knows what's going on. People are dying. His family members are dying. His friends are dying. And he's watching. And he's also watching the Nazis around him who are doing these things. And here's what he said. They control me. They control everything around me. But there is one thing that they cannot do. They cannot make me hate them. And I will not. In light of all the pain and all the anguish, some of you are sitting here thinking, if you knew all I have been through, though it's no wonder that I am the way that I am. I have no control over it. Yes, you do. Franco sat there in German prison camps and looked at all of the pain and dying and said, I won't hate them. Here's a quote from him. He said, we who lived in the concentration camps can remember the men who walked through the huts comforting others, giving away their last piece of bread. They may have been few in number, but they offered sufficient proof that everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of his freedom, to choose one's attitude in any given situation or circumstance. And people are dying, people are perishing all around. Many of these people died of a broken heart, and they died of bitterness. He said one of the problems was some of them were too optimistic. They thought, well, it's going to change any day. He didn't even try to do that. He just said, I will get through this. And he succeeded and came out of that prison camp to become a motivational speaker for others. And he said, they can do anything they want to the outside of you, but they can't control your attitude. You control your attitude, whether you're going to be faithful, whether you're going to keep trying, whether you're going to do your part if no one else is doing their part. Whether you're going to forgive, whether you're going to be a friend to people who aren't your friend, and give when others are taking. It's absolutely your decision about your attitude and what goes on in here. Don't blame anyone else. People who just believe they've been victimized in life, it's just not true. Emotional fact number 2. We marry according to our emotional health. Health marries health, and unhealth marries unhealth. We marry according to our emotional health. Health marries health, and unhealth marries health. Why do you think that dominant men marry women who are timid and have low self-esteem? Because a dominant woman wouldn't put up with a dominant man. One of them would murder the other one. True? So that man looks for someone who's going to allow him to dominate. Why does a woman who has low self-esteem marry someone who's dominant? Because she needs someone who's going to take charge and kind of push her along in life. And it's true of a lot of different behaviors that we have. The problem is that as we grow in life, if we don't change, that sickness stays and it begins to grate. The woman that is weak begins to resent that man dominating and controlling her all the time. And the man that is controlling will look at that woman and think that she's weak and he'll despise her. If a woman who is dominant marries a weak-willed man, someone who is, when she marries him, oh, he's so sweet, he'll do anything for me. After a while, she's like, he's such a wuss. I don't have any respect for him. I wish he'd stand up once in a while and be a man. I mean, that's just how it is. we marry, health marries health, and unhealth marries unhealth. And so, this is why there is so much fighting and so much trauma in life. When Doug and I married, he was shy, but he also had a very dominant personality. And he was a little controlling, like a lot controlling, you know. And I was needing a lot of approval, a lot of all of that. And so, yeah, we butted heads a lot. But eventually, I began to trust God and ask God to show me what I needed to do. You know, one thing, I have one of my best friends in life when I was younger. Her husband went to God and said, I don't like her doing this and this and this. And God said, okay, let me talk to you. If you do what you're supposed to do, she'll do what she's supposed to do. So he lined himself up and began to do what he was supposed to do. And she woke up the next morning and she said, God told me to start doing this. That's how it works. You take care of you, and God, will take care of your spouse. But you have to trust it. And it may take more than a day. It might take a few months of consistent change. So a controlling man might have to become a servant and start loving his wife the way Jesus loved the church. It isn't that God doesn't want a man to be a man. That's not it. But a real man loves. And a love is a servant's love, like Jesus. And if you really love your spouse like that, then your spouse will respond to that and love you back. And so we began to change. Okay, number 3. Well, let's stop there. The only way that you can change another person is to change yourself. People aren't going to just let you change them. You can go to your spouse and you can say, I don't like this and this and this, and I want you to change today. And they're going to go, oh, thank you so much for pointing that out to me. I really appreciate it. I'll change right now. No, they're going to dig their heels in, and they're going to go, you go to wherever. I'm not changing, and you can just forget it. That is not happening. So, people don't mind if you talk to them about a complaint or two in a non-abrasive, gentle way. What they do mind is when you tell them that they are the problem in the marriage and everything they do is wrong, and it's why the marriage is failing. You have to take responsibility for your fair share of the problems. Listen to me. When you change, the marriage has changed. Relationships mean relating. If one of you changes how you relate to the other, the relationship changes. If you solve your own problem first, the first step to solving your problem, that is the first step to solving your marriage problem. When you begin to change, it changes your spouse. And this morning, if you would just stop pointing the finger, they're not the reason that you're unhappy. You're the reason that you are unhappy. Sometimes, and I've tried to tell people this, we get fixated on stupid things. I have a husband who doesn't work. He's retired. He's with me all the time. All the time. It took me a couple of years to get used to that. At first, I mean, that was like after he had his tumor surgery, and he would follow me around the house and want to know when breakfast was, when lunch was, when supper was, what are we gonna do, when are we gonna do it? And he was breathing right on my neck all the time. And it took me a while to adjust to that. He also wanted to help with everything. Like, he likes to do the dishes for me. And that's a wonderful thing, right?
Even if they're done wrong, it's still right. It's still 100%.
Yes, so even though I open the cupboard, and sometimes the biggest bowl is on top of this little tiny bowl, and it starts to fall out on me, I don't say anything except, thank you for doing the dishes. Thank you for doing the dishes. Well, you correct your kids. You teach them the right way. But when your spouse does it, you keep your mouth shut. And when they put the pans in the cupboard and they push them up so high, then the little thingies come out so the shelf falls down and it all comes on your feet. You
That's
just
planned.
go, honey, the shelf broke. And you let them fix it. You don't do it. You gotta learn, girls, to let them do some things. They do it wrong, they do it wrong. But you don't tell them it's wrong. You just let them do it. Somebody folded my towels last week. They folded the towels. I like them folded in half and thirds. There's a right way and a wrong way. My way.
If you fold them wrong, they don't fit on the shelf chart.
Yes. Yes, John, yes.
You know what? I've taught it a lesson. You want them folded that way? Your job.
So, I was busy with other things, and he was being helpful, and he folded them, and he put them away. And they fell on my feet when I opened the door. So I just picked them up, refolded them, put them in the cupboard, and said nothing. Except, thanks for folding the towels, hon. Now, I will tell you that if I went out to the barn and put things away like that, I would hear about it. But, we're talking about marriage, so I'm telling you, we have to learn to pick our battles. Those are little things in the scheme of things. Come on. They're little things. What our big things are, does your husband love you enough to help? Some husbands don't help with anything. Does your husband love you enough to stay and be there and support you? Does he help you when you don't feel like, come on, think about what is the big thing here? Are we picking at little things or big things? I'm sorry. It's true though.
That's one lesson I've learned in the last 14 years. Because my wife has been completely out of commission. A number of times with surgeries, fighting cancer. Somebody had to step up and make her life just manageable. When she wasn't in it, to see the frustration in her eyes, when she couldn't physically do what she wanted to do. About drove her nuts. She about drove me nuts.
So you did it for her.
Exactly. Which leads to a habit that I still have. When I get laid off, I cook. I will clean the kitchen. It's time for her to have a break.
Good. The last of the 4 points, emotional facts of life. Emotionally healthy people can do the right thing even if nobody else does. Does you doing the right thing depend on him doing the right thing or her doing the right thing? I'll do the right thing if you do the right thing. What if they don't? Are you still gonna do the right thing? Do you do the right thing because it's the right thing, or do you do the right thing dependent on someone else's response? We do the right thing because we're mature Christians, because we are healthy adults. We're emotionally healthy, right? We do the right thing because it's the right thing. We're going to stop being children and start being adults and taking responsibility for our own emotional health. If we do that, we are going to become happy, healthy people. And truthfully, you can be in a marriage and not be that happy at different periods of time. And you can let God be your husband and you can be happy. You spend enough time with the Lord, you can be happy in that and wait until things change in your marriage. Trusting God, making the right emotional responses, doing the right thing whether no one else does or not, looking at yourself, seeing what you need to change. I'm telling you, some of you would be shocked if you actually asked the Lord what you're doing wrong instead of pointing your finger at your spouse. What am I doing wrong? What could I change to make this marriage better? And then do it and see what happens. Okay, let's pray. Father, I just thank you for this day. Thank you for these couples. Lord, I ask you to help us all do the right thing in our marriages and in our walk with you. Let us become the mature Christians that you are seeking for us to become. In Jesus' name, amen. Challenges? Questions? No?